Tonight, we're looking at 9 massive stars who looked at that contract, tore it to shreds, and chose to go public with their faith. For some, it almost cost them their careers. For others, it became their salvation. From quiet believers to outspoken evangelists, these are the stories of celebrities who risked everything to follow Jesus. Denzel Washington. Let's start with a man whose career seems to have been written by a higher power. Denzel Washington wasn't supposed to be a movie star. He was supposed to be a pastor. And in a way, he became both. Back in 1975, a young Denzel was studying journalism at Fordham, flunking out of college, and considering joining the army. He had no direction. Then, during a church service, a woman he'd never met wrote down a prophecy on a piece of paper. He thought she meant preaching from a pulpit. After all, he grew up Pentecostal, in church 3 times a week. Seminary seemed like the logical next step. But God, it seems, had a different kind of stage in mind. First came theater, then blockbuster films, then Oscar gold. For years, Washington kept his faith mostly private, separate from his career. Then, Hurricane Katrina hit. Seeing the devastation, he felt a divine call to use his platform differently. He started choosing roles that explored biblical themes: redemption, sacrifice, and integrity. He began speaking openly at churches, funding seminary students, and producing faith-based content. That prophecy from 1975 had come true, just not in the way anyone expected. As his pastor later told him, he found his pulpit, and it was bigger than any church in the world. Chris Pratt. From one Hollywood titan to another, who's become one of the most talked about believers in the business. Before he was Star-Lord, Chris Pratt was living in a van in Hawaii, working just enough to cover gas and fishing supplies. It was a simple life, but it was spiritually empty. Pratt grew up in an evangelical home, but, like many, drifted away when the temptations of Hollywood came calling. By the time Parks and Recreation made him a household name, he was battling depression and alcoholism behind the scenes. The turning point came with the premature birth of his son, Jack. The health scare was terrifying, and Pratt found himself on his knees making promises to God. This time, he kept them. That profound experience cemented his faith, and he made a commitment to use his massive platform to be a light. His now famous 9 Rules speech at the MTV Awards was a watershed moment. In front of a global audience, he boldly declared his faith, and while some in Hollywood cringed, millions around the world were inspired. Pratt knows the risks. As he said himself, religion is divisive, but he cares enough about Jesus to take a stand, even if it costs him everything. Patricia Heaton. Speaking of risking it all, Patricia Heaton, the beloved star of Everybody Loves Raymond, made a choice that nearly ended her career overnight. At the height of her sitcom fame, she was Hollywood royalty. But in 2004, she did the unthinkable. She spoke at a pro-life event. The backlash was immediate and severe. Casting directors stopped calling. Friends in the industry ghosted her. The message from Hollywood was crystal clear: keep your convictions private or prepare to be unemployed. But for Heaton, this was a non-negotiable part of her Catholic faith, a faith forged in tragedy. Her mother died when she was just 12, leaving a void that she says only God could fill. That early loss gave her a profound sense of eternal hope, a belief that she would see her mother again. It's this deep-seated conviction that has given her the strength to stand by her principles, even when it meant standing alone in a town that demands conformity. She chose her conscience over her career, proving that some things are more valuable than a spot on the A-list. Dennis Quaid. For some, faith isn't a choice made in comfort, but a lifeline grabbed in desperation. In the 1980s, Dennis Quaid was Hollywood's golden boy. He had the looks, the talent, and the charisma to be a megastar. But behind the scenes of hits like Top Gun and Great Balls of Fire, he was spiraling into a severe cocaine addiction. He described his life in 3 stages. First, it was fun. Then, it was fun with problems. Finally, it was just problems. The rock-bottom moment came when his young son found his drug stash. That night, Quaid had what he calls a white light experience, seeing a vision of himself either dead or in jail. He got on his knees and prayed, for the first time since he was a child. That prayer led him to rehab and back to the Christian faith he had left behind. But this time, it wasn't a routine. It was a relationship. Quaid started reading the Bible daily and choosing roles that reflected his newfound values. He went from nearly losing everything to producing and starring in faith-based films like I Can Only Imagine. His story is a powerful testament to the idea that it's never too late to be saved. Kevin Costner. Sometimes following God's plan requires a leap of faith so big it looks like madness to the rest of the world. Enter Kevin Costner. After a legendary career with films like Dances with Wolves and The Bodyguard, his soul felt empty. He felt a calling to make Horizon, an American saga, a Western epic about how faith guided settlers in the American West. There was just one problem. Nobody in Hollywood wanted to fund it. So Costner did something almost unheard of. He gambled $38 million of his own money to get it made. It was a colossal risk, one that could have bankrupted him, but he believed it was God's timing. Fast forward to the 2024 Cannes Film Festival, where Horizon received a stunning 11-minute standing ovation. With tears in his eyes, Costner realized his gamble had paid off. He learned that when you stop chasing Hollywood's approval and start following a higher calling, the rewards are far greater than box office numbers. Chuck Norris. He can roundhouse kick his way through any problem on screen, but in real life, Chuck Norris faced an enemy he couldn't fight. A deep, spiritual emptiness that nearly destroyed him. Walker, Texas Ranger, made him a global icon, but the fame couldn't fix his failing marriage or the void in his soul. Norris was raised by a single mother who prayed over him every night, telling him, God has a plan for you. But the Hollywood lifestyle swallowed him whole, and he lost himself in the party scene. It was only after his first marriage of 30 years ended that he remembered his mother's prayers and picked up the Bible again. He later met and married his second wife, Gina, and they began reading scripture together every morning. Norris is now open about how that decision saved him. He admits he was once an angry man with a huge hole in his heart. It took surrendering to a higher power to finally find the peace that fame and fortune could never provide. Mel Gibson. No celebrity has gambled more on a single project of faith than Mel Gibson. When he decided to make The Passion of the Christ, Hollywood didn't just reject him. They warned him it would be career suicide. Every major studio passed. Agents told him he'd be blacklisted. Undeterred, Gibson poured $25 million of his own money into the film. He was prepared to lose it all. After filming, he couldn't find a single major distributor. It seemed like the critics were right. Then, a small independent company called Newmarket Films took a chance. The result? The Passion of the Christ became a global phenomenon, grossing over $611 million and becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film in history. More importantly, it became a powerful tool for evangelism, bringing millions of people closer to faith. Gibson took a risk that terrified the entire industry and was rewarded in ways that defied all earthly logic. Eddie Murphy. In the 1980s, Eddie Murphy was untouchable. With specials like Raw and films like Coming to America, he was the biggest comedy star on the planet. But while his humor was often edgy, his personal life was anchored by a quiet, steady Christian faith that he credits with saving him from the destructive path many of his peers went down. I know that God is real, Murphy has said. There's been a bunch of times when I could have wound up crashing and burning. He was baptized Catholic and holds fast to his Christian-based values. For a father of 10, he says prayer isn't a performance, it's a form of protection. In a world of excess and temptation, Murphy's faith has been his constant, a grounding force that has allowed him to navigate the treacherous waters of superstardom and emerge not just intact, but whole. Tom Hanks. Finally, we come to America's dad, Tom Hanks. For decades, Hanks was famously private about his religious beliefs. He grew up in a confusing mix of faiths. His stepmother was a Mormon, his aunt was a Nazarene, and his friends were Jewish. By the time he became famous, he had largely given up on organized religion. Everything changed when he met his wife, Rita Wilson, a devout Greek Orthodox Christian. Her faith reignited his own spiritual curiosity, And all that childhood exposure to different beliefs suddenly clicked into place. He realized that the common thread was the intellectual pursuit involved, the great stuff to think about. Today, Tom and Rita are active members of the Greek Orthodox Church, and Hanks has become increasingly open about his faith, even quoting Bible verses in interviews.
Every day for I don't know how many years that he would bring me somebody that I loved, that loved me in the same way, and he brought me Tom.
He found that the great unanswered questions of life aren't meant to be solved, but to be explored. And for him, that exploration has led him home. From quiet conviction to bold declarations, these 9 stars prove that faith in Hollywood isn't just possible, it's powerful. They risked their reputations, their fortunes, and their careers to stand for something bigger than themselves. So, which of these stories inspired you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this look into the intersection of fame and faith compelling, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines.